I I am glad to be back on the camera again after last week. So this is JotForm. I just want to ask, are any of you familiar with JotForm or have ever used JotForm? All right, I see Sandy and Eric going, nope. Okay, so let me give you a little background on JotForm. JotForm is a web-based software that is almost like you're registering for something like SurveyMonkey or one of those Microsoft subscriptions. It's a subscription-based software. You can pay it monthly or annually. If you are a nonprofit organization, which I think you are because you're here with the Nonprofit Consortium, it will allow you to have 50% off of the original price. So that's what we are paying here at Goodwill. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. The website is JotForm.com. If you want to look at it for anything that you might want to look up just to see what it is, you're able to do that. Now you're going to see me looking toward the right here as I present to you, because again, I'm in the boardroom this time, so we don't drop signal, and I'm looking at the screen up here. So Crystal, if you'll be my helper elf since we're in December, if there's any questions in the chat, just unmute yourself and kind of help me. So if you guys don't want to be on recorded video or speaking, just put it in the chat and Crystal can help me with that. This is the screen when you log in for JotForm.com. You're able to see a lot of things on the screen, and I want to walk you through kind of what you're looking at. On the left-hand side of the screen is the navigation folders that I've created for JotForm. So what JotForm does is it allows you to kind of file your forms into different categories, because eventually, as you see on my screen, you're going to have tons and tons and tons and tons of forms, and I could keep going. And I don't want to have to look through these forms on a regular basis to try to find something. So what I've done is create some of these folders to classify what kind of category these forms are in, whether we use them for a digital skills form, we might use them for an entire department form. So I've created some of these folders on the left here where you can see that. At the bottom of that navigation pane is a button that says create new folder. And again, you're able to just create a new folder. And the way you categorize them, if you'll notice on the right-hand side of each of these forms, there's the little yellows. So that means this form here is in the survey folder, which is found on the navigation pane. So if I click on surveys, only those 3 forms pop up that I have put in that folder. So that's a really quick way to filter any of the forms and stuff that you've created in JotForm. All right, and I'll go back to all forms so we can see that again. Also on the left side of the navigation pane are a couple of little menu items here. JotForm is also one of those shareable forms, which means that if Steve has an account with JotForm and I have an account with JotForm, he can be working on a form and he can share that form with me. So as we would talk about in Canva, Canva allows that to happen as well. So if you want to share a form with somebody to be able to go into that or be able to use those forms together, you're able to share with other people. So if I clicked on that, it would show forms that someone else has shared with me. You also have the ability to assign forms. So in just a moment, I'll talk about the levels that are available in JotForm. Those levels allow you to have things such as a team or an enterprise kind of organization going along. If you're kind of in that format with JotForm, you're able to assign those forms to certain people. So Steve is in charge of the CDL classroom survey, Richard is in charge of the HVAC survey, etc. You can assign those forms to individuals. And of course, you can draft forms before you actually put them into files. So you're working on a folder or working on a file or a form and you just don't want nobody to see it yet, you're able to draft that. And last but not least, just like in your email accounts, you actually have favorites and an archive and a trash folder. So if you happen to delete a form by a mistake, it automatically goes into the trash folder and you're able to restore that if it's just a mistake. As we move to the top of JotForm, we have a couple of things over here in the navigation piece that I want to talk about, those menus. But I also want to talk about this little drop down menu here where I'm going to show you a couple of options that you have in JotForm. So My Forms is where you default to. So the screen you're seeing now is the My Form. So any form that you've created, drafted or anything would be located here. That's the default screen. So My Form is all the forms that are available to you. Under templates, in JotForm, just like in Canva or any other creation software, there's a whole library of forms that are created already as templates that you can just reload or load them and then change the name and just add things and take them away. So in these, and I'll just click on form templates for you so you can see what comes up. In this particular section, you'll see a whole bunch of various forms, 10,000 or more forms that pop up, right? They categorize them in the left-hand side here. So if you know that you're looking for a contact form because you're looking for people to contact you on a website, you're able to do that. If you're looking for membership forms, there's 213 of those. So they really kind of try to categorize them for you so you have quick searches. If you're looking for something specific, you also have a search bar up here that will allow you to search for those forms. So if you're looking for maybe a student form because you're in a school system, if you're looking for an online shopping form, you can type in that and it'll pull up some of those. So again, it gives you a wide array of forms and an ability to search those forms if you're looking for those. So that's found under templates. And again, you have multiple templates here that you can use. For integrations, integrations is something that's integrated into the JotForm software. So it does have integrations to do with Zoom. It has a lot of integrations to do with various platforms that you can kind of look those up. I won't go into detail with those, but you're able to integrate things like PayPal if you're taking payments from someone. You can integrate some Google Documents or forms into this. If someone wants to take a picture, I'll give you an example. We use this for our store audits here. So our district managers have tablets. And so we've created a form for them. They can go in and fill that form out as they walk through the store on the JotForm because again, it is a web-based software. So they're filling out the form and they can click a button and hold their device up and take pictures if there's something wrong with the outside of the store or anything like that. And it will upload it into JotForm as well as Google Drive because we've integrated some of that into that software. So you can kind of manage your own stuff with this one. You can click on integrations and kind of see what's available because there's multiple platforms that you can use. The other thing that I want to talk about is the level of pricing that you are able to access with JotForm. And what that is again, if you're a nonprofit organization, you're able to get 50% off by giving JotForm the verification for your JotForm or nonprofit status. So on the screen, you can see starter level is free. So if you have a free version of the platform, you're able to do very minimal space, but again, that will, you can increase that as you need to. If you want to move up to bronze, the actual pricing for bronze is about $16 a month. Because we're nonprofit status, that would be $7 a month, and you would move up to that bronze status. We are currently at the gold level, which is the highest level. It is HIPAA compliant, which means that personal information can be stored on this. It does belong to us. We can back it up and download it as necessary if we choose to do that. We did go up to there because, again, that's only about $42 a month. To me, that's pretty good. It equals out to about 200 and something a year, close to about $300. So $300 per year is probably good for software, especially for a nonprofit organization. The enterprise. Now, the enterprise is available. It is a platform where you can have your own integrated email system, your own kind of branding, your own everything. When we checked it out, the price at the time was $6,000 per year. But it is an integrated full-blown system that if you want to use JotForm very intricately and you can put it into everything that you practice, that could potentially be something good, because what you can do is build a team platform where maybe Richard is the administrator, and then I can give Crystal and Steve access to various things. They can assign their team to various things. It's kind of that integrated enterprise, so to speak, using their word. So it's worth it if it's a platform that you're really wanting to delve into and use very, very heavy. Are there any questions, kind of the platform and what it's used for, anything like that? We'll go into some of the building aspects of it. All right, good. No questions. I'm getting good. All right, so the other thing that I wanted to show you before we dive into an actual form is right in the left-hand corner here, there's a little icon drop-down menu that says My Forms. Okay, again, My Form is the default, but if I click on it, it gives me a couple of options. It says My Forms, My Tables, My Reports, My Approvals, and My Apps. I will not be going over some of this stuff today. My approvals, we will not, but I will give you a rundown of what it means. What approvals means is that you can set up an approval kind of branching for like, let's say, registration events or something. If people register, that means Steve has to approve that they've been approved to attend the event. Once Steve approves it, then it sends out the email that, congratulations, you're confirmed for the event, etc. Or if we're doing a form for, let's say, COVID testing, right? I'm just making it up. If Richard has to submit that he took a test today, and then Crystal says, yep, I can verify that, and then the next level of approval is Steve, it would go through those approvals before anything officially goes into the system. So it does allow you to set up those approvals if you want to. The My Form section is, again, what you're looking at with a list of your forms. If I go into My Tables, what My Tables means is the submissions for my forms, okay? So if I click over here, I started a testing form so we could play today without, revealing any information. So under the form itself, you have this little button here that says 0 submissions. If I click on submissions, it's going to take me to the table format. And what it looks like, Crystal, which will be very happy for you, it looks like an Excel spreadsheet, right? So once it loads, it has all of the headers of your particular form in a table format. And again, I can scroll through that. All of the questions on my form in a table format, and it literally just lists them like an Excel table anytime a submission comes in, right? So this is just kind of a format for looking at submissions, looking at kind of people that submitted your form. It's in a tab format. So again, I can add a new tab and create another version of this if I wanted to. There's also an ellipsis here where you can duplicate it, change it, rename it if I didn't want it to be the title of the form. I can download it as an Excel spreadsheet if I choose to, a CSV file, or an entire package of PDFs. So if you've ever gotten a PDF like export, any submissions for this would be individual submissions, all listed in a PDF file, 1 page, 2 page, etc., for each individual submission. And you also have the ability to see anything that you've deleted to be able to restore it. So let's say Steve submitted a submission for this form, and Crystal and I were looking at it and I happened to delete it. Well, if Crystal goes into the trashed entries, you can restore that submission just like you can restore a trash file. And that gives you a second level of security just in case you accidentally delete something and you don't want to call the person back and say, hey, can you resubmit this? So you have the ability to restore something, so you have to delete it twice technically, which I think is a great security feature. Then when we get in here, you get a whole morsel of these, but we'll talk about that in just a minute. What I would like to do is go back to Form Builder. So here's the builder. This is where we're going to actually look at the building of a form. So as it loads, I just have a question. Is the network connection working pretty good? Okay. Oh, y'all making me happy. All right, so here is the screen that you would see when you are building a JotForm. At the very top, again, we have the ability to look at some things. We can view the form as a user would view it. So it's almost like that preview of it. We can see how the person is going to look at it. You have the ability to look at your submissions. The inbox is the exact same thing. It's looking at the submissions that people have emailed you or anything like that. This PDF editor. So I want to continue these JotForms if we see enough interest in them. There are pieces to this JotForm, such as the PDF piece and the app-based piece, that we will continue building on if people are interested in it. What the PDF editor means is that when a form is submitted, I can make it create a PDF of the form, so I can view it in that particular way instead of the Excel spreadsheet table. I also can create the PDF and have it send it as an automatic reply to a submission. So for instance, if it's a registration form, so I'm doing an event, let's say we created a JotForm for the event on January 12th. Anyone who wants to attend the Excel bootcamp would register, and then you will be able to attend. I would be able to create the JotForm, and then when you hit the submit button, I would create that PDF to send to you, so you would have a copy of your registration. Or one of the examples, I'm working with the Volunteer Center and I'm helping them out. So I've created a Martin Luther King Day form for them, and they want a map of the place. So they've created a map, and that PDF will be stored in that. So when someone submits an entry, they'll get an automatic copy of the PDF map. So you're able to create a PDF that will be attached to the confirmation email, if you will, that they get when they submit a form. And then Report Builder, which we'll talk about at the very end of the class, toward the very end, you have the ability to create reporting. It's very minimal reporting, but it's pretty good statistical reporting on the submissions and the way that things are exported on the reports. So let's look at some of the form elements that you can put on a JotForm. If you'll notice, it's a standard form. I use the template. So the background of the page is a certain color and the form page is a certain color. If you wanted to change that, over on the right-hand part of the screen looks like a little paint roller. If you click on that paint roller here, it's called the Form Designer. And in the Form Designer pane, you can adjust some of these elements on your form or the way that your page looks. So they have some pre-established color schemes if you want to use those. Right now, I don't think it's using any of these. It's done its own. You have the ability to set a page color. If you've attended any of my classes, you might have heard me say that if you're not a colorful person and you don't really like all these color codes, you can actually go to color.adobe.com. Again, that's color, color.adobe.com, and it will allow you to pick any color on a spectrum, and it will give you that hashtag hex coding for you to select that color that you choose. So once you pick the hex color, you can come in here to JotForm, type that code in, and it will mimic the color that you've placed on this page color form. So the page color is what the page looks like, and the form color is the actual form piece of it. So you can have a very dark blue background with a very light white page. So it just determines whatever you think is right, your branding colors, whatever you choose to use, you can set them here. You also can set the page as an image. So maybe the consortium has its logo, and as the page background, they may set their logo in the background, and then the form would be a white color. So you're always seeing that consortium branding. You're able to do that here. You can set the page image or the form image, depending on what you would like. Down below is the font color. So if you want the type of text color, so right now it's set as a black or blue color. If you want to change that, you're able to change it here with any color that you choose, as long as you grab that hex code, that hashtag, whatever numbers and symbols are after that. You can grab any color you want from, again, color.adobe.com, and then type in that code, the color code, and you're able to change the font color of your sheet as well. Now, I won't go into too much of the Advanced Designer, but if you open the Advanced Designer, you can even choose the font size, the font layout, what type of font you want. some really, really intricate details. If you launch that, you're able to do that there. I want to be able to get through a lot of this stuff today, so we won't go fully into detail of that advanced designer, but you have a lot more options if you click that button and go into it. All right, any questions so far? Crystal, anything in the chat? Oh, I got a quiet crew. I like it. All right, so now let's talk about adding the building elements of your form. At the very top, very lightly, you can see this little bitty section here that says add your logo, right? If I choose to click that add my logo, I'm allowed to upload a file, choose my images that have been uploaded earlier, or enter a URL for that image to be able to store at the very top of my sheet. So if you have branding things that you would like to do inside of your JotForm, you're able to put your logo at the top of the page if you choose to do that. This, when you click on the elements of this sheet, now again, this is a template. So it does have already pre-established information. I can move them around, as you will see in just a second. I can delete them. I can do whatever I want to, but it does have pre-established elements on the form. So when I click on the header, you notice it highlights it and it gives me a little tool section over here. I can either delete that or open the properties of that particular element. If you'll notice to the very left of those menus, there's about a section of 6 dots here. When I hover over those, it's the moving selection. So that means if I grab that, I can move that header up and down the sheet or wherever I choose to. So let's look at the properties. Every form element has a different set of properties. So you can play around with this, create your free account, kind of play around with it. And if you choose to invest in it, you can go a little bit higher. But every element that you choose has a little bit of different selections that are available. So in the header section, it opens the properties. There's a general tab and an image tab. So the general tab says, you know, what do you want the heading text to be? And right now you can see it's test student information collection. You also can add a type of subheader. So I'm just going to say test subheader type. All right, so you see that appear here underneath the header. And then you have a couple of formatting options on the header itself. You can make the size a default size, which is the standard for the form, or you can make it large or small. If I make it small, you'll notice that it changes it to a smaller font. And if I choose large, it creates it as a larger font. The text alignment is just as you're familiar with in Microsoft Word. If I left align it, it's toward the left of the element. The right is toward the right of the element. And then again, in the center, it centers everything in that header platform. What is nice about the JotForm is that under every single element, it allows you to duplicate so that you don't have to create things. So if you know you need 4 questions on a form that are all drop-down menus, you're able to duplicate it 4 times and just change the contents of it. So you don't have to add an element every single time. You're able to duplicate each individual element if you choose to. The last field here, I will give you an example of what I might use it for here, and then you can kind of see if it's something you would do. If you select hide the field appears on the design section for the person who's designing the form, but in the preview section for the user, they cannot see that element. So one of the ways that I use that is we use a registration form here in our center. Or maybe a better example is the example of our referral form that is on our website. If that referral form is meant for the Career Center staff, I want that form to be emailed to a Career Center staff member. If that form is meant for a digital skills referral, I want it to be emailed to a digital skills person. So one of the things that I've done is create an email box, an email element, and I've hidden it from the view of the person using the form. So if they choose a Career Center option, then it fills that form with an email address that's for the Career Center staff. You can't see that on the user side, but for the schematics of the form, it makes it easier for that autoresponder email to be sent within the system. So that's one of the reasons why I would hide an element, but that hide field here button allows you to hide the field from view of the user. And then of course, for this particular one, there's an option to do a header image as well. And you can choose a file from your computer or drive that you want to upload into your header section. On the left-hand side, you see this little pulsating plus sign here. That's where you add the form elements. Okay, so if I click on the plus sign here, it gives me a list of standard form elements that are located here. Now, if you notice, there's 3 tabs. So let me explain the 3 tabs. So the basic form elements tab creates you a list of basic things that people use on a regular basis in JotForm. Okay, so you may create a header. So I can drop a header here. The first and last name of an individual, the full name. Now, let's say here, I'll show you some elements on the form. This right here is a full name element, and I'll show you those schematics in a second. You have an option for email, an address, phone number, pick a date, appointment, signature, everything, right? They can sign the form with their pen. Fill in the blank, which means, let's say you were having a game or something. You say, fill in the blank for what we learned today. I blank, da 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 da. They are able to do that with a form list. You also have product list. Short text. The difference between short and long text is the amount of characters they can type. So if you've ever seen a form, short text is that little bitty space you can just type maybe your name in. The long text is that paragraph. So maybe in the form it says, please give me 5 skills that you've learned in the last 6 months, and you may have to elaborate on it. That gives you like a paragraph element to type in. A drop-down menu is something they can select as a drop-down menu. So think database. If I need to choose which class you would like to register for, and you have a drop-down list of all the classes available. The difference between single choice and multiple choice, and this may seem elementary to people, but single choices are what we call radio buttons. They look like a circle you can just click in. Single choices only allow the user to choose one of those choices, and they refuse to allow them to choose any more. So you can only register for one class. Please click which class you want. Then you would use a single element, a single choice element. A multiple choice element shows up as a checkbox, which means they can check as many on that list as they choose to, and allows them to choose multiple options in that list. They also can type in a number, choose an image, upload a file, and some other things that are available here. The survey elements at the bottom is a good thing for people to use. They use input tables, star ratings, and scale ratings. A lot of people use JotForm for either forms to register or surveys that they're trying to collect. You're able to do that here with a star rating. How many stars would you rate the class today, etc., or which scale. So on a scale from 1 to 10, on a scale from 1 to 20, you're able to adjust those particular things. The other 2 tabs are getting into a little bit more advanced versions of JotForm. So as you play with this or ask questions or we start growing these classes, the payment section allows you to put payment options here from different platforms. PayPal, Square, Stripe, any type of stuff. Now be mindful, if you use these elements on the form, you will be asked to connect your account to this so that they would be able to process anything. So, make sure security is in place, make sure it's available. You've got the highest level of JotForm because again, you're paying on platforms, so just be careful with that. But it allows you to take payments for registrations for an event. Maybe it's, something that you are, charging people $10 to attend. They're able to take those payments on the JotForm through the platform that you have linked. And then the last one is different widgets. Now, there are thousands of different widgets, so I don't even have time to go through a lot of these widgets. However, if you are looking for something, so one of the things that we use is terms and conditions. So on our website, on our JotForm, what anybody that registers for our services has to understand that we may contact an employer to ask to verify your placement that you've reported to us, or you understand that we're able to share certain information with certain people but not others. and that consent is for 12 months, right? We want them to understand that. So we use a terms and conditions element, which makes them have to check that they understand that and then put their signature on it so that we know, yes, they have given us consent to do that. So you have a search ability here. So if you're searching for payments or, maybe a table or a checklist, these are different widgets that are found in JotForm that you're able to use. They have a thousands and thousands library of widgets. Some of those widgets are what we call dynamic, which means they are growing, they're ever changing. So if you've got a text box or a drop down menu that you want people to add to, it's called a dynamic drop down list or a dynamic text box. So if your list says ABC, but you want people to say, no, I don't like ABC, I want to choose F. And then the next person that opens the JotForm will have ABCDF. So it's like a dynamic growing list that people can add to on their own. Various widgets that you can choose from, and you can add them to your form and then adjust them through the properties. So let's look at a couple of these particular forms widgets here and see how some of them are laid out. So let's look at a name, because I think that's one of the biggest ones used. Obviously, every form would probably have a name. So again, when you click on the element to select it, your options here will pop up, or your dragging option where you can move it on the form up or down or to another location on the form. So I'll just move it up to the top and release it so I can move that around. And then you just choose the action gear to open up all properties of a widget, whichever one you choose. Again, all widgets have different options and different properties that you can adjust. So in this particular widget, we have a general, options, and an advanced tab. General is what you're going to see most likely is what the title of it is going to be, what it's going to look like, the question itself, and what alignment do you want? Do you want the question to be at the top of it, to the left of it? If you'll notice when I click left, it can move. Do you want it on the right of it? And then if you want that to be the default throughout your entire page. It also allows you to set a required option. Be mindful, if you require something, then they will not be able to submit the form or go to the next page. If you've required something, it will say you've left something blank, you're not filled completely out, something, etc. It'll give them a warning. And then for this widget, we have first, last, and middle name. Now, up in the options here for a name widget, I can remove the middle name if I choose not to accept the middle name. You also can add a prefix and a suffix to this if you choose. So I want you to say, are you a Mr., Mrs., etc. And then the suffix if you are junior or a third or anything after that. If you, a lot of questions that pop up for the name option is, let's say I decide that I want the first, middle, last, and the prefix and the suffix. I want to give it all. Does that mean that if they don't fill every single block in that name up, that if I require that field, that means they can't submit a form? No. What that means is if you require a name, that one of those blocks has got to be filled in. So if they put their first and last name, they don't have to put anything else. If they put in their first, last name and some other stuff, that's fine. But the suffix, the prefix, and the middle name does not matter if you require it. It will only require the first and last to be filled in. And then advanced gives us a little bit more advanced options. What a placeholder means is the text that you see here is the first name. So a placeholder means you're giving them an example. So if I put Richard in the placeholder's first name, it'll show in the box itself, like this is the example of what I mean. Give me your first name, give me your last name. So you can put placeholders in there if you choose. The hover text is if they hover over that name element, it'll pop up a little blurb that says this is what it is, right? I'm asking you for this information because, or whatever you want to show them if they hover over that element. So let me put test hovering option. Okay, so I'm going to just do that. And what I'll do is preview the form right here and let it load for a second.
Richard, is that where you could put just a note that you'd put the name they prefer to be called? Because we have
Yes.
people who will sign James, and I'm going, we don't know a James. Oh, it's really Mike. But they'll
Yep.
put their formal name instead of calling it formal. Could you just put a hover that would say, please use what you prefer to be called?
Yes. So if you'll notice on the form, when my mouse moves over to this, you see that little text up here. It says test hover option.
No.
It's what I put in that hover text. So as soon as they hovered, it gives them almost instructions. So yes, you could say, please type here the name that you prefer to be called. It does not have to be your government name, right?
Okay.
So yeah, it's just going to appear when they hover over the element.
Okay.
Sandy's laughing at me.
Well, they do formal, or they'll think because they have to check out with PayPal, they got to use their husband's name because that's what's on the card, and yet a registration form is separate. So it's always a.
Yeah, it is. It is. Another element, a good one to go by, is the phone number. That's an element we include on this a lot. So again, there's an option here to open the properties. You're going to see some of the same information. You're going to see some different options. So on the general, it's pretty much the same. What's the alignment you want? How do you want it to appear? It's going to say phone number or telephone number. Whether you want it to be required, and then any sublabels you want to add here, which is the little piece that appears right below it. Under options. So under options, input mask means that it will appear in one block. If I take input mask off, the area code goes in a separate one with the phone number in another one. Okay. Some people prefer that, some do not. So input mask means it's all in one with those area code parentheses around it. And then if you need to put the country code in, it will appear as like 1, which is the US, 1+336, etc. So if you've ever used Skype or Zoom, sometimes it'll show 1+. That's the country code. And then under the advanced, again, you'll see some of those other options we saw earlier. The only addition here is the shrink. Okay, so let me give you an example. And I think since we're running about 15 minutes now, shrink means you have a form size in that paint roller we looked at earlier. You can say, I want a form that's 700 by 5, right? You can set the kind of the pixelations of it. If those elements don't fit and you want to list 2 on the same column or 1 below it, etc., if I shrink it, then that means I can put 2 on the same size. So watch what happens when I hit do not shrink. Phone number goes to another line. Okay, because it's taken the whole form. If you shrink it, it shrinks it to the smallest size it can do, and then you can move it in between things and make it more easily adjusted. And then of course we have hide field, etc. Now, under field details, this is a little bit advanced, but under field details, so there's an element called paragraph. All right, and all that does is allow you to put a paragraph on here. So maybe I, write, thank you for visiting our registration form. This registration form is da-da-da-da-da. So I'm giving them an introduction of what they're getting ready to do. It's just like you're writing a paragraph on a piece of paper. If, for instance, under, on our COVID pre-screen form a while back that we were using, we would say the name of the person filling out the form and then all the other information. At the very bottom, it would say I, and then the name of the person, etc. Agree that everything above is accurate and to the point. I wanted the person's name to appear there. I didn't want them to have to type their name again or anything like that. So if I want to reference an input field, so let's say it's their name field, let me go up to the name field real quick and show you. So let's click on name here. All right. So under advanced, at the very bottom, you have what's called field details. If I wanted to reference that field ID is this, #first_173. It's a little bit of string of characters. So in my paragraph thing, I could say I and put that field name in and then type everything else. And what that would do is whoever puts their name in that block, it would automatically fill that name into that form below it. So because I'm referencing that form element. So it's saying whatever's in this element can go here. Okay, so if you get a little bit more advanced, that's what the field ID is used for, to identify another element that you may want to reference in another one. Okay. So that is the basic gist of JotForm. Is there anything, while we've got a few minutes, is there anything that you're thinking of that you would use JotForm for that you may that say, hey, Richard, can this be used? And I've got one more thing to go over too. I just want to stop and get any questions that you may have.
Did you say it could be used for surveys as well? Because you did mention the different types of answers.
Yes. Okay. So let's look at a couple of other menus here. So once you build the form, we just talked about the elements, build it if you choose to. Under settings, you have the ability to set some options about, disable the form at a certain time, some accessibility things like warnings on the form, translations, password protected, etc. There's a whole bunch of options here. I'm just going to talk about a couple over here that, again, this is the basic form of JotForm. So when I go into emails, the difference between a notification email and an autoresponder. So the orange is called notification. So what that means is if someone submits the form, it notifies them that you have submitted a form to us. Okay. So if I edit this, what you'll see, and again, we'll have a JotForm too, so we can go into some of these really detailed pieces. This is the form that so they'll see JotForm. I can edit that to say Goodwill. It can have our branding on it. The form title, and any other elements that they've chosen, it'll show there. If they filled it in, it'll show it. And what I can say is, here's the email subject. So they'll get this in the email. Here's the form title, and then maybe the student's name. The good thing about JotForm is you're able to build what the subject says. So I can type stuff in, or over here it says form fields. So any form field that I have on my form, I can put it in the header of that email by just clicking. So list whatever they have in ethnicity, list whatever they have in a grade, list whatever semester it is. So the form may say submission semester 2 and the student's name, right? So that way you're able to search it in your emails. It makes it a lot easier for the person getting the autoresponder. Now, again, in JotForm 2, we'll talk about how to set some of these settings parameters. In this one, I just wanted to focus on what it's for and the elements that you can use. You also can set the recipients of it, and then also some advanced stuff. Under the advanced, you see this PDF attachment. So any of the PDF forms that you created that we were talking about earlier, you can turn this on and select that I want this map to go with this form on the autoresponder. Okay. So again, that notification section is just to notify a person of the submission, whatever elements you want to include, and then any PDF attached to that. The autoresponder at the bottom is an email that you have put. So if you have put an email in your form, when I gave you the example earlier about using a staff email, if you have put an email inside of your form, it'll allow you to send the form to that particular email. So that's what an autoresponder is, a notification and an autoresponder. All right. The other things that I want to talk about here is conditions. This allows you to set conditions and branching on your form. So for instance, Sandy, using your example of a survey, let's say, I'm sending a survey out to participants of our programs, and I'm really wanting to target 18 to 25-year-olds, right? It's specifically for a youth population. Well, marketing is going to send it out to every email we've ever collected. So maybe my first question is, what is your age range? Is it 18 to 25, 26 to 35, 36 to 45, or 55 plus? If they choose 18 to 25, then I would say, okay, go ahead and show them the survey. If they choose any of the other options, unfortunately, you do not qualify for this survey. Please contact us. We'd love to hear from you, right? So you want options or conditions based on a choice. You're able to do that under the conditions here. And you can show and hide a field based on an answer. So if they choose 18 to 25, show the rest of the questions. And under this, it's just like setting a condition. So if we'll say student name is empty or field. So if it's field, then I want you to show or hide whatever fields. So if I hit show or hide under the 1, it's just show or hide the next field. If I do multiple, so let's say I can show multiple, I'm able to click, hold my control key down, and start clicking all the fields I want it to show on the form to choose that answer. Right? So I can branch. It's called branching in surveys. So based on an answer, you can choose if it shows or doesn't show the next question. All right, I can discard those changes. Update a calculated field. This may be things that you do like weighted averages, right? So you can use JotForm for testing. So if you got question 1 right, it writes a score of 5. All right. So if I can set an updated calculated field to perform a calculation based on an answer. So if this is chosen, 2 plus 2. If this is chosen, it equals 5, right? I can develop calculations. I also can enable and require fields based on information that you've answered. So for instance, if you say you are under the age of 18, then maybe I require you to answer the question, do you have a guardian, right? If you do not choose under the age of 18, then that field is not required and you could submit the form without it. So you have the option to enable and require fields based on answers to a question. You also can skip a page. So if you've designed your survey in Pages or your form in Pages, you can say based on this answer, they don't need to fill out page 2, go ahead and skip to page 3. Okay, so you're able to kind of set conditions based on everything. The last one on this list is really, really important. So changing an email recipient means that beforehand we talked about the notification email being sent to whoever's filled out the form. If they choose something like yes to a question and you need to notify someone else, you can change the email recipient using the conditions to say, if yes is entered to this question, please notify HR@trygoogle.org or something. So you're able to change it based on if something needs to be notified by another person. And last but not least, under publish, if you're using this form on a website or under anything that is particularly, you want to put it somewhere, you're able to get a link to share the email. You can edit this link if you choose to. You can copy it and send it out in an email address. You can invite people to use the form by typing in their email address. You can share the form here like we talked about earlier. Any forms that are shared with me, I could see. This one requires them to have a JotForm account. The link or invite by email does not. You can type in anybody's email. You also have the ability to embed the form, and this is if you're using it on a website. So if you've got someone in your marketing department that builds the language to your website, or I'm not an HTML coder, and this is really important to me in using the form on our website that we do, is it will give you an embed code that you can copy and paste into your website, and it will show up on your website as a form, right? So you don't have to know the code. You can have source code, you can frame it. So if you've ever been on a website and you see the form show up in like this cute little frame that looks really nice, that's what iframe means. It's showing it in a frame and it gives you the source code for that. It also gives you the WordPress plugin to use if you're using a WordPress platform. It also gives you a feedback button code. So if you want it to, if it's a survey for feedback, it'll allow you to show it as a button on the website instead of a form. So it gives you a lot of the embed code to pop it up on a separate tab. So it's already in here. You just copy it and paste it to wherever you need to, and it shows up on your website. So there is a lot of advanced features here. There's a lot more that we could go into if I had another hour or so. But I want to just set the foundation for you to kind of get the gist of JotForm, kind of what you can do with it. And then we'll kind of continue that just like we have Excel, so we can build on this and we'll look at the actual detailed, intricate design of this for you to be able to use that. So I will stop sharing my screen and ask you if there's any questions, anything that you would like to know that maybe I didn't discuss that you thought you might want to know.
Do you have any of these forms on like the Goodwill website that we can see what they look like as on the website?
I believe so. So let me share something with you, Sandy, and I'll show you where we've got it. So let me do try Goodwill real quick before and I'll share in just a second. All right, let me share one more time. All right, so I've got train, and it just takes me a second to get there. It's embedded. So on our website, on the train section, I think I've showed you this in the Google Sites. I built a separate platform that looks like our website, but it's controlled by us instead of the marketing side. It's under our virtual services page. At the bottom of the virtual services page, there's 3 buttons that a person can pick, or tiles if you say. And so let me show you at the bottom of this screen. So if you're looking at my screen now, this is our virtual services page that I designed using Google Sites. So at the bottom of all of the pages are 3 different tiles that they can choose from. It's schedule an appointment, how did we do, and I got a job. So this one is like a survey, and then this one is I got a job, so they can report a placement. The other one is booking, so that's a different platform. So these 2 are JotForm. So if I click on how did we do, it'll open it in a separate tab because I just put the link in the background. Give it a second, and it's opening. See here, JotForm Try Google Survey.
Oh, it shows up there. Okay.
Yep, and see, here's the form. So if you'll watch, here's what I mean by conditions. So it says choose the interaction you've had with us, because they have many different ways to come into our services. So maybe they're a career center visit, maybe they were on the jobs on the outside, maybe they took a computer class, whatever it was. Based on the answer to this, so let's say it was a hiring event, they only get the hiring event question. If I choose a different one, like I visited the career center, there's a whole different set of questions. So that was the conditions I was talking about.
Questions popped up based on what you clicked the first time.
Yes. So that's under the conditions piece I talked about. So based on an answer, something else will show. So for instance, if I go back up here and pick, I'm a Goodwill employee just offering feedback, then it's going to ask questions for an employee. And then just to give you kind of a look at it, I got a job and promotion. I used a template that looks like a envelope because I wanted it to be like you're sending something to us. So in this particular one, I can't remember which form it was, but it looks really nice. And at the bottom, it looks like you're stuffing it in an envelope and sending it off. So it says, I got a job. They're typing in all their information. And then it looks like they're submitting it in an envelope. So, but that was a template on JotForm. It was not my HTML coding, I promise you. And so that's kind of the, yeah, so you can embed it into it, or you can make it look like a form. Yeah. All right, any other questions?
Good, thank you.
Okay.
We had a question about the billing. Do any of the levels allow for like multiple users, or are they all billed separately?
So, for the cost of the form. Mm-hmm. So any of the 4 levels that you see, the basic, the gold, the silver, bronze, all of that, those are 1 user. So what we do here is we've got 1 email address set up like CDS software, and that's the account that is attached to that. So anybody that has a password can log on and change stuff. So we're able to use 1 user on those platforms. The enterprise portion, that was the $6,000 a year, that allows you to have as many users on the form as you want with each individual email and each individual login. But you have to go through JotForm to be able to pay for that, because they have to see what you need.
And it works.
Yeah.
Right. And I was just wondering, like, how many people do you have using it at one time? Like, and it works well?
Yeah. I mean, we've used that one account and there's been 5 of us inside of it at one time. So it doesn't kick you out.
Okay.
It's just, you have to give the password to 5 different people, which is fine for us for what we use it for. But those last 4 levels, that's what it's used. And then enterprise will give each user its own login and password.
Great. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
And if the free version has, am I live? Okay. If the free version is, so you said there were 5 forms you could store. If you use one of those forms and you go in and you take it out and you put a different form in.
I love your dog.
My alarm, Dora.
I love Sandy's dog, but I think, Sandy, what you were asking was the storage capability. So you have like 20 forms or something. If you delete one and replace it with another, it counts it like 1 form. So let's say you've made 1 form, you've done what you've got to do with it, you delete it and you put another one in there, it's still going to count as 1. It's not going to count the ones that you've deleted. But I would, as we close, because I don't want to keep you guys too long, if you look at the storage space and the submissions, because if you do the free version, it's very limited space and very limited submissions. So you may have to, if you're going to try it out as a free, you may have to go in and clean it out and just store it in an Excel spreadsheet somewhere. So as you see the functionality of JotForm work, and then if you think you need it, then I would do the paid version. But be mindful of how much storage and submission it has, because it'll tell you no more space is available. Okay. Well, I'm so glad that we made it through this with no glitches. And Steve and Crystal are laughing because you guys were, no, 2 of you were on it last time, I think. So yeah. Eric's going, Well, that's it for me. I really appreciate it. Again, I'm plugging January 12th for a 4-hour boot camp. We're going to be covering tons of stuff in Excel, and maybe a couple of other Microsoft software pieces too, just in case you kind of want that blurb. So please come.
Thank you, Richard. We appreciate it so much. This has been, like I said, one of the best things of 2021 is this partnership with Goodwill. So thank you so much for that. Guys, thank you for being with us today. Have a happy holiday. I think this is the last consortium event for 2021. We're excited, but don't hesitate to reach out anytime that you need either Crystal or me. Have a great holiday and we'll talk to you soon.
Happy holidays to
Bye, y'all.
you all too.